Hey everyone, my name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. If you like making money, you know what? Just click subscribe. I'm going to try to help you the best I can to help you make some money during this commodity bull market. Ride it up with me and the other people in this community. Let's ride it up together, help each other out. So I was reading this article here. I'll shrink me up a little bit. The article is Renewables Dominate the Headlines, but Oil and Gas Remain King. There's some pretty interesting things in this article here. One thing that she touches on, and I completely agree with the article, that's why I'm sharing this, is the transition of global energy system that runs on renewable energy rather than finite and dirty coal, oil, and gas is arguably the number one topic in the media, sometimes eclipsing even the pandemic. Yet, for all the enthusiastic talk, it seems that we are nowhere near accomplishing the transition. And it may already be too late to do anything about climate change anyway, according to some climate scientists. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to touch on here that I think are very important. Here's one of them. It says, this is the environmental law said, it is not a matter of absence of the technology or the inability to do it. If you actually look at what are the cheaper sources of the energy supply right now, it is not really even a matter of economics. It is much more about embedded power structures and continued support of dying industry. That's what Speaker CNBC Carol Moffett said. Now, she's saying that she's referring to the government subsidies of the oil and gas industry in countries such as the United States or UK. What he doesn't mention in the above comment, however, is the fact that the US government and many others also have substantial subsidies for renewable power and plans to boost these in a bid to encourage wider adoption. As Moffett puts it, the energy transition is primarily a matter of political will and economic choices. Indeed, it's a matter of political choice. Virtually every reputable energy authority has repeatedly said that it is up to the politicians to make sure the transition occurs by encouraging renewables and discouraging oil and gas. Now, when I read this, by encouraging renewables, it means that renewables are not competitive with oil and gas. They are too costly. They do not work. Says this, however, begs one question, and the question is this. If renewables were as economical as their proponents say, wouldn't the private sector be embracing them on its own for the profit opportunities, rather than waiting for subsidies to be granted before venturing into the field? Perfect question. Great question by the author of this article. It goes in here, says there's also another question. If renewables are the economic choice, why are the emerging, meaning poorer economies of Asia, investing so heavily in fossil fuel generation capacity that demand for oil there could jump by as much as 25% by 2040, according to Wood Mackenzie. So even in China, the indisputable global leader in renewable energy capacity is building new coal power plants, despite celebrations of solar becoming as cheap as coal 2 years ago. So why are they doing that? These are not questions that the most vocal advocates of renewable energy like to discuss. They interfere with the narrative that solar and wind are not only emissions free, but they are also as cheap as fossil fuels. If that were the case, it would certainly make fossil fuels irrelevant. After all, if two sources of energy cost the same, but one is renewable and the other one is finite, it would make the best economic sense to bet on the first and not on the second, the renewables, from a purely pragmatic point of view, even without factoring in emissions. And yet, poorer economies are betting on fossil fuels, while richer ones are investing billions in renewable energy generation and storage capacity and in electric cars. It seems there is a disconnect in the logical sequence of arguments for the energy transition. This author is pretty good. I really like this author. On the one hand, solar and wind are cheaper, and hydrogen and EVs will soon get cheaper, so it would make sense for everyone to get on board with them. Everyone being the poorer countries and the rich countries. If it's cheaper, it's cheaper. Why not go with it? Yet, on the other, wealthy nations are the ones being the most generous with wind and solar adoption and support for hydrogen and EVs. Human activity is driving climate change. Colm Sweeney, this lead scientist for Earth, whatever, if we want to mitigate the worst impacts, it's going to take deliberate focus on reducing fossil fuel emissions to near zero. And even then, we'll need to look at ways to further remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, he said. Fossil fuel emissions account for the vast majority of greenhouse gas emissions from human activity on planet. So, voluntary energy consumption cuts are highly unlikely. So this, too, would require political action. Some are already calling political action for renewable energy a form of government abuse. Imagine what they would call policies forcing people to consume less energy than they are used to consuming. I just thought this was a great article. I wanted to share it with you. If renewables are that cheap, if they're that great, why aren't we already adopting them? There's got to be some sort of pitfall with them. I'm not anti-renewable. I'm not anti-fossil fuels. I just want to make sure that we invest accordingly on this channel to what the reality is. I am still an oil bull. I still think we need a bunch of oil. I think in order for the renewables to be successful, that we're going to have to burn a lot more fossil fuels. We have to dig all this stuff out of the ground. I don't think technology is going to save us. I don't think technology is going to figure this out. If the copper or the silver or whatever minerals in the ground scattered scarcely in that ground, we still have to move the ground to extract the resource in ever declining ore grades, which is going to require ever increasing energy inputs. So I think that playing the biggest or the most used commodities in the world, oil and silver are two of them, that we are going to crush it if we play those commodity plays. I am also not convinced that we can even go to renewables on a worldwide scale at the scale that they want us to do. I don't know if we can extract the copper, the whatever mineral there is in the ground at the quantities that they want. I don't even know if we have the reserves required of the amount that they want. So I am investing in the materials and in the resources. That is my viewpoint. That is where the ratios tell us that we should be. And I think there's a good opportunity there. If you guys like this content, give me a thumbs up. Appreciate it. Leave comments below on any questions or concerns that you guys have. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.